Welcome back to your home of credible, factual, and balanced news. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone. Don't forget we're also on Facebook, on Africa Young Voices Media Empire Facebook page. Don't forget to drop your comments and questions right there as we move into the discussion now. Today, 27th April, marks Sierra Leone's 60th Independence Day. Now, in the celebration of the day, or to commemorate the day, we've seen several dignitaries from the sub-region arrive here in Freetown to grace the occasion. Now, while some people believe we should celebrate the day, some others believe there's not enough reason to celebrate Independence Day. So this morning, we ask, is the day really worth celebrating? And what are the gains we've made so far as a nation? So in the studio this morning to discuss all of this, we have been joined by Dr. Alhaji Njai, the founder and chief strategist of Project 1808. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Right, and we also have with us Dr. Julia Spencer. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Right, we're expecting Haja Alima Abdullah, who's the president of the 50-50 group, to join us as we move in the conversation for today's Independence Day. But while we have you two here, as you've heard from my introduction, some people believe we have nothing to celebrate as a nation. 60 years on, we've seen prime minister to presidents, we've seen war, we've known peace, elections have come and gone, and we are where we are today. 60 years on, Dr. Julia Spencer, do we have anything to celebrate as a nation?
Well, I would say yes. I don't like to use the word celebrate. I prefer commemorate or reflection. We have existed as Sierra Leone, an independent state, for 60 years now. Some things have been positive that have happened, but there have been many negative things. So while we celebrate the positive things, the fact that we are still together, the country has not been divided, we have never had ethnic conflict. We have had a war which has been very devastating. We've had many negative things happening. Most people are not pleased with the way the country is going in terms of relationships with each other. Politics seems to be becoming more toxic, and so on. So yes, there are some things we can celebrate. Sierra Leone is still relatively peaceful. We can celebrate our religious tolerance, because the kind of religious tolerance we have in this country, I don't think exists anywhere else. This is probably the only country in the world that has this kind of religious tolerance. I lived in Nigeria for a while, and I saw what was going on there. Sierra Leone is unique, maybe partly because of our history. But that's something we should celebrate. We have made several achievements. Sierra Leoneans have done well in certain fields. We have provided some leadership in terms of some of the things we have done. Even with the fight against COVID, Sierra Leone has scored many positive marks. Sierra Leone is rated one of the best as far as the way we have been able to control the virus. So there are some things we can celebrate. But as I say, there are many things that are holding us back and are threatening the future, which we need to look at on this 60th anniversary to see what we can do to ensure that we do not fall off a precipice.
Now, as you mentioned, those things that are holding us back as a nation, do you think that we've moved at the pace that we were, I would say, meant to move, given that today we're marking 60 years of independence? And when you look at other countries who are, I would say, nearly the same age, you have countries like Nigeria, Ghana, who are like 65, around the same age of independence. Are we where we should be as a nation?
No, we certainly are not. I heard the Vice President at the start of this program, talking about what Sierra Leone has achieved. By independence, just before independence, Sierra Leoneans were helping other countries. My father worked in Nigeria virtually all his life in the Nigerian civil service. He was an engineer. He became inspector of works. That's where he worked most of his life. There are many Sierra Leoneans in Nigeria. Even today, they talk about Saro. There was a community in Lagos, which they called Saro, where when you're troublesome as a child, they tell you that they're going to send you to that Saro Mami. So Sierra Leone exported education. When I was a student at Jala, we had students coming from all over Africa, Gambia, Ghana, Nigeria. We had South Africans, Namibians studied here. The present Prime Minister of Namibia studied in Sierra Leone, went to school in Sierra Leone. So Sierra Leone was a leader. We were called the Athens of West Africa. Athens is in ruins now, so maybe that's why Sierra Leone is also in ruins. But the fact remains that Sierra Leone was a leader. The civil service, Sierra Leone was like the hub. Religion, Christianity, education, Sierra Leone was the hub. So we have gone backwards. When I was a student at Jala, we used to be laughing at Gambians because we had lots of Gambians studying in Sierra Leone. They didn't even have a university then. And we would laugh at them that if you want to catch a plane, you have to wait under a mango tree in the Gambia. Go to the Gambia now, see what their airport is like. So it's like Sierra Leone moved backwards. When I was a student at Jala, going up country, roads were tarred. Now many of the roads that were tarred are no longer tarred. So lots of things have gone wrong. But I believe that one of the major problems we've had in this country is that when at independence, what happened at independence was basically that Sierra Leoneans became the new masters, which is not what it should have been. The hope at the time was that when we are independent, we will be able to look after ourselves. We'll do what is right for ourselves. Because the British system, the British setup was basically meant to exploit, was to take from here and to build their own countries. If you look at the road network, it was to take produce from where it was being produced, to take mineral resources, bring it to the port and ship it out. That is what we are doing up till today. That is what we are doing up till today. In terms of, we had the colony and the protectorate. The people in the colony were supposed to be British citizens, while those in the protectorate were subjects of the British crown. Now, the Queen was the ruler, and everybody was their subjects. And the way they treated Sierra Leoneans, just like the way they treated blacks all over the place, was that we were subjects. Now, the hope was when Sierra Leoneans took over, that dynamic would change. And Sierra Leoneans who are ordinary people will cease being subjects and be real citizens. But all that happened is that Sierra Leoneans replaced the British, and the ordinary Sierra Leoneans remained subjects. And that is the way it is still today. If you just reflect on how, when people get power, how they behave to others, you will realize that this is true. Somebody who yesterday was an ordinary citizen, today is a member of parliament or a councillor or a minister, and suddenly everybody else is their subject. It is a servant-master relationship. It is not a servant at the top and master at the people. It is the opposite. So we need to really, I think that the major thing we need to do during this year of our 60th anniversary is to have some deep reflection on what is it that makes us not able to achieve our true potential. You go to Namibia. I went to Namibia, visited Namibia some years ago. Smaller country than Sierra Leone. They have diamonds and fishing resources. Those are the two key things they have. But Namibia is almost a developed country. You go there, everything works. Last night I was talking to a friend of mine. We went to university together. He emigrated to Namibia, is a Namibian citizen. And he was talking about the way things work in Namibia. You don't have to go see anybody to get things done. The system is working. Here it is not working. If you want a job, you are a university graduate, you qualified. You have to know somebody before you can get a good job. You want something simple that should happen, you have to go see somebody. You have to have contacts to have it work. That is not the way it is supposed to be.
What do you why do you think that is? What do you think influences the perhaps attitude of Sierra Leoneans towards, moving development and, making the system work in order for us to progress?
Okay, I would say many things have gone wrong. From independence, the attitude of those who took over at independence, that is one. Secondly, the kind of political system we have been practicing, the winner take all, makes it, and over time, it has gotten worse. People now believe that to get anything, to be able to prosper, you have to either be a member of the party that is ruling, or you have to know somebody, or your relative has to be there. So politics has become a do or die affair. I have been advocating for us to go to a proportional representation system for years now, because in 2009, when I reflected, I realized that the elections we had under proportional representation, 1996 and 2002, were peaceful. Before then, violence. Even when we had a one-party system, there was violence during elections. Elections were rigged. Then we had 2 elections under proportional representation. Things calmed down. There was no violence. Then we went back to constituency-based election, winner take all. Violence came back, and it is getting worse. So people believe that you have to get political power. That is the way you can become, you can do well. So people are desperate to get political power. As a result, when those who win are in power, all those who contested, who did not win, are trying to do now is to undermine them so that they will not succeed, so that they will now get power. And the system has turned out to be such that we have it is a duopoly, as they call it, 2 political parties. That is its character across the world. And when you check, you find out that the majority of developed democracies in the world are not practicing this winner-take-all. They are using some form of proportional representation. But when you talk about proportional representation in Sierra Leone, all people know is the system we practiced, which was the closed list, party list, national first, then district. There are many other systems. And I believe we can even create our own. We can use the principles and create something that suits us as a people. This system we are practicing does not suit us. It makes for conflict. By its very nature, it engenders conflict. There has to be conflict all the time. And because of our own, call it cultural practices, you will have conflict, in quotes, with somebody contest against, one side against the other. That becomes, you become enemies. You become enemies. So it becomes more difficult for you to work together. The proportional representation system takes all of that away. And we can then, everybody has a say. If we had a proportional representation system, for example, SL people would have had seats in the city council. They would have had some seats in the north, quite a few in the north. APC, same thing in the south. But because it is winner take all, in fact, for the local government elections, because it is winner take all, people become councillors without even getting 50% of the votes. If there are 3 contestants, for example, one gets 30%, another gets 20, the other gets 30, or one gets 35. With 35%, you probably become the councillor. But it means that about 70% of those people there did not support you, did not vote for you, but then they have no say in what is happening in their council. So this, even in terms of women representation, proportional representation would make it easier for us to have the 30% quota that we are talking about.
Right.
But one thing my experience has taught me is that most people, not all, most people, when they are in power, they do not see the light. They only see the light when they are not in power. That is what happens. It's not just a Sierra Leonean thing, across the world. So, for people, I think the advantage we have this time is that the president seems to believe in proportional representation. The vice president also seems to believe in proportional representation. That, I think, provides some capacity to have a national conversation on this issue. I am not claiming to have the answer or the answers to Sierra Leone's problems. I have my own views, I have my own insights. Many other people have views, some different from mine. But what we need to do as a people is to have the ability to sit down and discuss these things honestly and sincerely. Look at what is happening in Parliament now. They're fighting. This didn't happen in the past. So it shows that we are retrogressing. We are going down a situation where more and more violence, the society is becoming more and more violent. Look at the cliques that are growing. What is happening in Sierra Leone is that we are moving towards a situation where, if we are not careful, we'll have a revolt of the underclass. Those people who don't see any future for themselves, and they're out there trying to make a living, trying to live their lives. They do not see any hope for the future. They're the ones in the gangs and the cliques. Right. So we need to look at this thing dispassionately, sincerely, and have a national conversation.
Right. And you've talked about this, disconnect between people in leadership positions or in authority and the people they govern. But also on the other end of that, you have a large number of citizens who do not take ownership or responsibilities for things that they're meant to do as citizens. But we'll get to look at that shortly. We have our man on ground now, Samuel Wise Bangura, and he's somewhere across Freetown, I believe Congo Cross, and he's, gauging the atmosphere and what is happening right there. I think we're ready to join him. Samuel, are you there?
Ali. All right. Thank you very much, Antonia. And by the way, before starting here, let me seize this opportunity to say congratulations for winning the best female journalist in Sierra Leone. You look Miss Independent, by the way, this morning in the studio. Interestingly, we're here to monitor what is currently ongoing in the streets of Freetown. Yesterday, the government of Sierra Leone announced that some streets would be out of use to allow a free flow of traffic for the dignitaries who are coming in to commemorate with us the 60th independence anniversary. And where I am right now is at the roundabout at leading to the Congo Cross bridge. And interestingly, there are posters of 7 presidents who are expected to be part of the commemoration ceremony here. So if you take a look at the far end, we have the poster of the president of the Republic of Liberia, George Opongwea. You have the poster of the president of Senegal, Macky Sall. You have one of the presidents already in the country, the president of the Gambia, Adama Barrow, and of course the president of Ghana, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. He is already in country, and we have here with us another poster of Alassane Ouattara, who is the president of Ivory Coast, expected to grace the commemoration ceremony. We're also expecting the president of Guinea-Bissau Umaru Sissoko Embalo to grace the occasion, and of course Alpha Conde, the president of Guinea, which speaks to a lot in terms of bilateral ties. Remember, very recently, our relationship with Guinea has been constrained following the Yenga saga, the border closure, and things like that. So, what this would mean for Sierra Leone at 60 is something we would have to find out from some of these guys. But because going back to the restriction for some of the streets, it appears much information was not sent out to commercial motor drivers and bike riders as to what streets they should not use, because the police are very, very much busy right now, so busy trying to divert the vehicles, telling them not to use the routes that government has announced. Those routes should not be used, and the timing announced was 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. But you still have commercial vehicles going in and out, and the police are finding it very, very difficult to control them and divert those vehicles to ply the routes that are free, for today. So technically you want to say Freetown is in partial lockdown. But we are expecting the Minister of Information, who just passed and wishes to join the conversation from this end. But we will have to go back to you, Antonia. Interestingly, the President mentioned this morning in his statement that Sierra Leone is a diamond in the rough. We're yet to refine this precious gem we have as a nation. After 60 years, we're yet to refine it. But he made a very critical statement that this is a watershed moment, for Sierra Leone. So we are hoping that those in charge, those who are ensuring, who are being charged with responsibility of ensuring that we refine this precious gem and improve its value. I was listening to Dr. Julius Spencer giving Sierra Leone its past glory, and it comes as no surprise that there are positive things that we've achieved as a nation over the years. But here, right now, it's difficult to say what are we getting in terms of tangibles to look at when talking about 60 years of independence in Sierra Leone. So what we are going to do when we speak to the Minister of Information, we're going to get precisely how the commemoration is going to look like before we start taking a look at those streets that were announced by the government for vehicles not to ply in order not to obstruct the free flow traffic of the dignitaries that are coming in to be part of the commemoration ceremony. Antonia, I would have to go back to you, and when we have the Minister of Information, I'll come right back to you in the studio.
All right, well, thank you very much, Samuel. As we saw there, it's very quiet out in the streets of Freetown, partly because, there was a press statement out from the president's office, shutting down some streets along the western end of Freetown, from Congo Cross to Wilkinson Road. As we would say, a partial lockdown from 7 in the morning to 4 p.m. I suppose we're expecting the statesmen from different countries to be moving across Freetown to help us commemorate Independence Day. But we continue the conversation here in the studio. We still have with us Dr. Julius Spencer. We have been joined by Haja Alima Abdullah, the president of the 50/50 group. And in our studio too, we have Professor Njai. And, we were talking about the disconnect between people in governance and those being governed, the citizens. Now, how do you think Sierra Leoneans have done so far in taking ownership and taking responsibility for the country and for, you know, I would say little things that we can do ourselves without the help of the government in order for us to have a collective effort in moving as a nation? Professor Njai.
I'll say Sierra Leoneans are hardworking people, and they do work, and they're very ingenious and creative, and that's been manifested throughout our 60 years since independence and even before independence. And the people of Sierra Leone have shown great resilience, deep resilience, through periods of early independence, through war, through Ebola, through landslides and a lot of other areas, through difficult economic hardship, up to the point in which we've devised the terminology "we manage," which is now become a terminology in Sierra Leone that is used. I think what has failed Sierra Leone is mediocrity in leadership over the years. You cannot expect the people to be, to take on a certain transformational direction if there isn't the leadership that steers that boat into that direction. And what happened in Sierra Leone since independence is that we failed to develop a national agenda for the country. And so from independence, 1961, from the get-go, when it was diverse Sierra Leoneans from all across the country that fought to remove the colonial masters, that went to London to kind of sign that independence treaty. But just after that, what we then delved into was more of a political party and regional agenda instead of developing a very transformational national agenda that then taps into the potentials of the Sierra Leoneans. If you go back to all our dark days under colonialism, remember it took over 130 years, from 1800s to 1961. And just imagine it's just been a year of wearing masks and changing our lifestyles under COVID. That's tough. Now think about over 130 years of conditioning. Your systems are ravaged. Your sense of humanity, sense of yourself is kind of diminished by Bure and others, where all forms of resistance were removed. And so your educational systems, your forms of knowledge were devalued, and you were dehumanized in all those periods. So when it comes to independence for me, it's more about a very reflective one, rather than because I feel like our ancestors will be turning in their graves and realizing how much we haven't made of some of the sacrifices that we have done to make us be what we are. So what we have now, essentially, is that we've killed the Sierra Leonean ingenuity, creativity, because why? We've become highly dependent on external systems. And so if I'm a Sierra Leonean who wants to be a farmer growing onions, but every day in the market there is thousands of onions are being bombarded into the market from outside, how is that going to be productive for me? So in 1980, we had IMF and World Bank, and IMF in general, that introduced the structural adjustment policies in those late 70s and 80s. And what that essentially did was made it very difficult to be productive as farmers, made it very difficult for people to stay in the villages. Because we kind of devalued things, we kind of changed things, and then those conditions actually were actually one of the initial push issues that led people to kind of leave the rural places, come to the cities. And so as a result now, what we have, move fast forward 30 years later into 2021 now, we are we are as dependent as ever on food. We are food poor, and in fact, to the point of being acute food poverty in Sierra Leone. Can you imagine? Sierra Leone, of all places, we are being ranked acutely food poor. And we are also talking about a nation where, water is everywhere. And we have, water unsustainability in the country. You go to every healthcare center around the country, you go to places around, you find that they don't have running water, even in villages. And then you talk about, when you come to our educational system that we do brag about, which is largely the Western, the colonial legacy, we talk about.
Let me just ask this question. Now you talk about, certain systems being, responsible for the shift. Farmers leaving their farms in the rural areas, coming into the city. We have acute food shortage, unsustainable water supply and things like that. But we also have a situation where, for instance, you have people migrating from rural areas into the city, not having a proper place to stay, but they live in informal settlements. They put up this makeshift structures where they spend most of their lives, and we've seen disasters happening in those areas, yet still they don't move, they don't see that where they're staying is a danger zone, and they need to go back to the rural areas, go back to the farms if that's where they used to earn a living. You have agencies like the Guma Valley Water Company, SALONE, setting up pipes and trying to get running water into homes. We have Sierra Leoneans going to dig up those pipes, cutting them off just because they've settled somewhere where, they cannot access water and do not want to go through the legal means to access water supply. So you have this imbalance, or I would say juxtaposition of, yes, there are certain things which are not right, but what is the responsibility of Sierra Leoneans in order to make things right?
So you see, this is all part of, we look at sort of the symptoms, but we often don't address the root causes. And much of what we see with, places like Krube, the slums, and issues with Guma, overpopulation in Freetown, and all those stuff, those are all symptomatic of a broken system. You cannot blame the people. They are fighting for survival. In the last 30 years, we have all sorts of survivors in Sierra Leone. And you could name them, all sorts of survivors in Sierra Leone. It's become the land of survivors. It's the simulacrum of desolate living. So people are on survival basis. And so what we have is, what is needed is transformational thinking. The big transformational ideas that say, okay, how do we move from Freetown, which was the central nexus of colonialism. Colonialism centered itself around Freetown, and the rest of the country was protectorate. How do we create a transformational Sierra Leone where we move things out of Freetown? We kind of decolonize the system. We create opportunities for Sierra Leoneans, and we also have to think about the fact that even our educational system that we brag of, we talk of this Athens of West Africa and all these kind of things, it's heavily colonized. Frobe College wasn't meant to create more technocrats and people who have the technical. It was meant to kind of just create administrators who can then, support the British in their systems. So we haven't sufficiently indigenized even our education to kind of be able to learn and do things that we actually help us, empower us. And we haven't, in the process also, sufficiently, incorporated our culture into our sense of national identity and building sense of patriotism. We had civics before we removed it from the curriculum. But even that civics was still watered down civics. It wasn't the civics that teaches you about the spirit of Baibure. Who was Baibure? How many Sierra Leoneans know about what's the spirit of a man who said no to a very powerful British system? And he actually knew what he was doing at the time. What we have is a narrative of a man who was just arrested by the British and taken to prison. We don't embody the spirit of Baibure, that spirit of patriotism that says, you know what, destroying that Guma pipe is something that is of a national importance, national treasure. We should value that thing. Because it has to come through the educational system. It has to come from that primary level up to the secondary and university level. You know, in all places around the world, America and others are not that different. What America has is brainwash system. They brainwash their citizens on patriotism, on believing on American exceptionalism, based on the sense of American culture and American history. Every American kid knows Abraham Lincoln, knows Kennedy, knows about George Washington, the founding pinnacles of American democracy. They know that. We have to, as a country, imbibe that. We haven't. We've had from independence to now. We've had war. We've had Ebola. We've had landslide. Now we have COVID. We've had thousands of our compatriots Sierra Leoneans have died. These are not numbers. They are people. These are our sisters. These are our brothers. These are our uncles. These are our children. These are our uncles. All this sort who died in this period. Not a single moment in these 30 years have we taken to say, let's sit back as Sierra Leoneans. Let's reflect on things that went wrong. Let's develop a reconstruction plan. When we had the war came, we just moved again to development straight. Ebola came, we moved again straight to post-development. Now, a landslide, we never took time as a country to sit back and then say, how do we develop a blueprint for our country to say, never again that Sierra Leonean will sleep hungry. Never again that Sierra Leonean will take an ammunition to kill another Sierra Leonean. That never again we will be, caught red-handed and killed in numbers by an infectious epidemic. What do we need to do to develop a blueprint for our country by bringing every Sierra Leonean from every part of this country, every part of the country, whether from the village of Kailaun to Pujehun to Koinadugu and others, bring them to the table. Let it be led by Sierra Leoneans, not the European Union, not the United Nations, not any foreign entity in that sponsors that and be in that room. They should not be in that room. It should be a room of Sierra Leoneans coming together and say, what is the future? What type of Sierra Leone do we want, and how do we want to create this Sierra Leone, and why it is important? And it begins with us even examining our constitution that is still a colonial architecture. We haven't even, it doesn't represent our current realities. And so we have to begin by examining that, examining also, okay, what do we have to do with regards to a national agenda, with regards to political power in this country? Just like what Dr. Spencer was talking about. We need to talk about how do we rule ourselves, because we are caught in these processes of, either bringing in American systems, British systems, and all these systems. But these systems are built around very non-pluralistic environment. The American system is not very plural like us. They don't have 16 ethnic groups. They don't have a lot of interplay of religion and traditional religion. They don't have the sort of diversity of regions and cultures and things. Between, Kabbalah town to Senekedugu, which is just 3 miles, you find 5 ethnic groups. Just 3 miles distance. America, you don't get that sort of pluralistic environment. So there is a complexity that we have to look at, that whatever we develop has to be agreed by us. And it has to be laid as the foundational cornerstone for our political independence, for our economic independence, and for our self-reliance. No country has developed in the world, no country you can name that has developed based on IMF loans, based on World Bank support. No country. In fact, countries from Argentina, countries in South America, Central America, in Africa, and many other countries have gone down the drain, have collapsed because of IMF and foreign donors and all that stuff. Here is a country where our policies are developed by outsiders. They are also implemented in our country by outsiders. And we talk about independence. So to me, even when you are modernizing, we are talking about we are creating modernization and all this stuff. Development is an equation. Development is modernization minus dependence. If you are dependent, however you modernize, development is not going to happen. And that is why 2021 Sierra Leone, even though we think we are much more modernized than in 1960 Sierra Leone, 1960 Sierra Leone was more food self-sufficient, exported food, and did more. So this is the difference. Development is a factor of modernization minus dependence, and we are heavily dependent.
So how do we move from that? You talk about us being dependent when it comes to food supply. We import so much, not just food, but almost every other thing being used in Sierra Leone is imported. And you talk about us being dependent on institutions like the IMF, the World Bank, for financial support. So they create policies which in the end we do not see the benefits of. So how do we move from that as a nation?
So you see, it requires bold, very transformational and visionary leadership and thinking, because it's very bold. You see, the easy way is to still go out and get all these investors, get these loans, get this, continue with these colonial hegemonies and neoliberal models. It takes bold leadership, the leaderships of the types of Thomas Sankara, Kwame Nkrumah, the types of, Magufuli of recent times, who went against the grain. And it's about thinking about, first, we need a series of revolutions in Sierra Leone. When I talk about revolutions, I'm not talking about civil war revolutions. We talk about coded revolutions. I'll start from a very blue revolution in Sierra Leone. A blue revolution that actually says our knowledge base, it goes back to our knowledge base. Our university systems, our school systems have to be now decolonized sufficiently to benefit us. We are producing thousands of graduates in all sorts of disciplines. Why are we hungry? Why aren't we creating industries out of this? Why aren't we being able to then say, you know what, we have been exporting cocoa and coffee for many years. Where is the industry around coffee and cocoa in Sierra Leone, that it is made in Sierra Leone? And even if now we are sending it to Starbucks in America, it will be there in the Starbucks shelf as made in Sierra Leone. Rather than we just sending seeds to Starbucks, and then Starbucks takes them, makes them into a package, and nowhere in that package do you see these seeds are from Sierra Leone. We've been in diamonds since 1890, over 100 years. What is the state of Kono? What is the state of Tongo? What is the state of Kenema? Over 100 years. Do we have then the architecture to say we are the best in the world when it comes to diamonds? There could be people flying from the US and other parts of the world who will come to Sierra Leone for their wedding ring, the diamond ring that they needed, and it creates tourism around it. Do we have the mining and engineering world-class center that becomes the world leader in issues around diamonds, cotton, processing, all sorts of things around it, and all other minerals in Sierra Leone. Do we have it? This is the kind of transformational thinking. When we are talking about transport in Freetown or livability of Freetown, are we talking about just, oh, this party bring 100 buses, oh, me said they bring 200, oh, we'll clap, we don't bring more. Is that transport solution? Are we looking at a more bigger transformational thinking around how do we resolve the issue of Freetown? Is it more roads, more buses, more bringing alternate railways, light railways into Freetown, water transport, other things, and then also looking at creating new economic centers that kicks people out of Freetown so that the traffic is not all coming into Freetown? Are we looking at creating Waterloo, Lungi, other places, Maishaka, Makeni, Bo, as the next epicenters of Sierra Leonean businesses or political centers that then reduces the need? So these are all the big transformational thinking. And of course, we need the sense of Sierra Leoneanness, that sense of who we are as Sierra Leoneans, valuing ourselves as Sierra Leoneans, loving ourselves as Sierra Leoneans. Today we are caught in this sense of a very highly polarized, ethnicized Sierra Leone. We are electing people based on ethnic numbers. We are firing people based on ethnicity. We are hiring people based on ethnicity. Competency is thrown out of the way. Statesmanship in this country is out of the thing now. It's all labelé. Intellectuals are missing. We cannot intellectualize. The lecturers are forming themselves into this. The military is, every sector of the country is becoming trapped in this hostage of two-party and political and regional thing. We are held hostage as a country. Where is the sense of our Sierra Leoneanness? The sense of our national identity? So today we must reflect as Sierra Leoneans. It is 60 years now. It is time for retirement. 100 years is close by. So from today on, what do we as Sierra Leoneans say is our 100-year, the plan for 100 years? To make Sierra Leone a country where we are putting Sierra Leonean values, Sierra Leonean interests front and center. We are saying then to other people that if you are going to come and do something in Sierra Leoneans first. Sierra Leoneans should be hired as the expert, as the consultant. Right. We don't need to be bringing consultants from every jack and little thing that Sierra Leoneans can do. And we also then have to then, as I said earlier, create national agenda, national cohesion, but also sit down as Sierra Leoneans, create a blueprint for this country. And that blueprint should cover everything, from health to education to sustainability, everything. And because otherwise, I feel like if we are not careful as Sierra Leoneans, the way things are going, with the way the democratic dispensation that we are promising to people is failing the people, if we are not careful, then it will be what Franz Fanon wrote, that the period will come when the oppressed and the wretched of the society are going to rise up. And we saw just what glimpses of that in the last 3 days, when just Okada guys made it unbearable to live in this city. We must, as a society, it's 60 years, and our kids, our grandkids, we must leave a legacy for them and be able to transform their own lives. They shouldn't live this sort of life. And we must live and maintain for them even the forest and environment, which I haven't touched. We are depleting all our forests in this country.
Well, I'm told you want to leave at 9, so...
Yes, I'm leaving now.
I want
so you go to foot, and a big. No matter where you go, let me make salon, and a big. No look so you follow, now follow, so you go to foot, and a big. Salon the well, yes not true, but we could not let us so. If you never so, tell me, who's a way to go? We all don't know, say we all tell of the past. Let we make come for the beginning of the bomb. Hey, no matter who you be, let we make salon and a bit. No look so you follow, no follow, who say you go to foot and a bit. No matter where you go, let we make salon and a bit. No look so you follow, no follow, who say you go to foot and a bit. Salon now we all, let we no never make it well. Salon now we all, let we no never make it well.
Right, welcome back to Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV Channel 33. We're also on Radio 101.7 FM. And we're here talking about the 60th Independence Day celebrations or commemoration in Sierra Leone. We still have with us in the studio Haja Alima Abdullah, the president of the 50-50 group. We have Dr. Julia Spencer and Professor Alhaji Njai in the studio. Thank you for joining us, Haja Alima Abdullah.
Thank you.
Right, I'm sure you've been following the conversation we've been having on, national development and whether the 60th independence anniversary is worth celebrating. From your, in your point of view, have we come as far as we should as a nation? What are the challenges holding us back?
Thank you very much for the question. Sierra Leone has come a long way, and we have our successes which we should celebrate, and we have our challenges as well. But I think the main thing, both Dr. Spencer and Dr. Njai have really dealt with the problems. I think our main problem, no matter what developments we're going through, if we do not have the human capacity, the human capacity that loves this country, the patriotism, the love for one another, the empathy to sympathize with one another, all the infrastructural development is meaningless, because we can, just like they were saying, Guma Valley will fix the pipes. Somebody, because of survival or because of their own selfishness, will go and cut it, and that is causing a lot of problems. We really need to have that national cohesion, that national love for one another, that love for Sierra Leone, love for country, for us to really maintain all the infrastructural developments that are going on. Because otherwise, it's like having a child, a spoiled child, and the father is rich, and you build this beautiful house for that child, and you die and leave that child. That house will go into ruins, or he or she will sell that house, because you haven't really trained him to love your hard and work that you did to build that house, to make that child proud of the home he is in or she is in, and to say, this is the legacy of my father, I have to maintain it at all costs. All what is happening, there is so much hate, there is so much negativity. Just like Dr. Spencer was saying, this winner takes all is creating a lot of problem. And the ego of our leaders And because there is so much deprivation, those who are governed see these people who are in governance as gods, and they praise them, do everything for them, cannot even tell them the truth. So they always feel that they are, whatever they do is right, and nobody should correct them. When you correct them, you are against them. And this is what is wrong. So there should be a way where the human resource development, like the president always say, is very, very important, because if people, the young ones, the youths, have something concrete to do that will take, make food available for them on their tables, they have clothes to wear, they can take care of their families, they will not have time to be standing in the street, you baba there, waiting there, so, and those things. They have time, they will not have time for those things. And then people, when you are yourself, you are able to do things for yourself. Whenever you talk to somebody, he or she will stand to listen to you. But if you have nothing, you're just there to get whatever little you can get from him or her, then she doesn't listen or he doesn't listen to you. Our leaders should be, they should have ears to listen. They should be sensible to what is going on. And there should be that cohesion. And I think now it's sad to say that Sierra Leone has been divided on party lines mainly, because that is the ethnic lines and whatever. And people are more loyal to their parties than to Sierra Leone. The loyalty that people show for their parties, the way they can go, the extent they can go to defend their parties, they do not have the strength to defend Sierra Leone. They can, as long as they are not in power, they want things to go wrong, terribly wrong, so that they will say, you see, because we are not in power, that's why this is going on, this is going on. And that sense, that patriotism should really come back. If we love Sierra Leone, we will try to make things work for Sierra Leone.
All right, thank you very much, Haja Abdullah. But we have Samuel on ground, and he's there with the Minister of Information, Mohamed Rado Sware, and I'm sure he's going to do an interview with him regarding today's Independence Day commemoration. Samuel, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am, Antonia. I'm here, and like you rightly mentioned, I have with me the country's Minister of Information and Communications, Mohamed Rahman Sware. Precisely, we want to find out from him how the commemoration ceremony is going to look like. Already we've seen another poster being installed, so it's like 7 countries. We're expecting heads of state from those countries. Remember yesterday 2 came in from the Gambia and Ghana. They're already in country, but let's find out and welcome the Minister of Information and Communication. Good morning, welcome to Wake Up Sierra Leone.
Good morning, quite a pleasure to be here on our country's Diamond Jubilee. I like to extend best wishes on this historic occasion to all Sierra Leoneans.
Let's get to it. The president in the statement mentioned that this is a watershed moment. Sierra Leone is a diamond in the rough. I mean, it's yet to be refined. I mean, what message does that send to a nation like Sierra Leone and Sierra Leoneans who are looking forward to a better country?
So what the president meant by Sierra Leone as a diamond in the rough, that means once we polish it, we can get its correct value. We can get its correct value, right? We talk about our mining industry, for example. Since diamond there is the metaphor, let me go to the mining industry straight off. If you look at the mining industry, diamonds were first discovered in Sierra Leone in the 1930s, right? You go to the place where these diamonds diamonds were mined or are still being mined. It's a story of missed opportunities. It's a story of deprivation. It's a story of poverty and all of it, right? So as a government, we want to ensure that we refine this diamond so that we are able to get its correct heritage, we are able to get its correct value. What do we plan to do? Number one, under His Excellency's leadership, we've been able to commission an airborne geophysical survey, which is now for the very first time since diamonds were first discovered going to give us a correct idea of where we have minerals, which minerals, in what quantity. This is going to put us in the driving seat of negotiating contracts and concessions for our natural resources. So this means Sierra Leone, for the very first time, will begin to benefit proportionally for our God-given natural resources. Secondly, we are in the process of reviewing the Mines and Minerals Act, which will ensure that communities in which diamonds are mined begin to enjoy the correct beneficiation from these projects, from these natural resources. So indeed, as per the metaphor, Sierra Leone is a diamond in the rough. You come to tourism, there are many unexplored opportunities, from ecotourism, geotourism, all of the various tourism opportunities. We have not explored half of our potentials, right? But you could see just before COVID struck, we had attracted a lot of international attention. We have started attending some of the world's leading tourist global tourist events. We have been able to market Sierra Leone as an ideal tourist destination. You saw last year we hosted the Budapest rally, the Budapest, Bamako, then Freetown rally, and I'm pleased to note that we are currently in preparations to receive a far more bigger delegation on the same project this year. So indeed, Sierra Leone is a diamond in the rough. There are a lot of things we could do to achieve a lot more. When you come to education, right, we all talk about this. Prior to independence and in the early days of independence, we were reputed as the Athens of West Africa for our quality of teaching and learning. It is even recorded in history that at some point you had more people attending schools in Freetown than in London at some point. But we have lost that shine. Again, we are in the process of building back better, right? His Excellency has commissioned an ambitious free quality education program to which he has allocated 22% of the national budget to ensure that we invest rightly in the next generation of leaders. These projects are all ongoing. If we take them to logical conclusion like we are poised to do, the story and the narrative will change forever and ever. Amen.
All right. We hope for the best, but let's talk about the commemoration ceremony today. We're seeing where we are currently about 7 posters being installed for 7 heads of state. Are all these men going to be here? Already we are aware that 2 are in country.
Well, so yes, like you mentioned, we already have President Anaban Barrow of the Republic of the Gambia. We have President Nana Akufo-Addo of the Republic of Ghana. This morning, we are expecting President George Okonjo-Iweala of the Republic of Liberia. We are expecting President Professor Alpha Conde of the Republic of Guinea. We are expecting later in the day the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Osinbajo. We are expecting the Prime Minister of Guinea-Bissau, Mr. Embalo, and we are expecting a large delegation from Ivory Coast and from Senegal.
Out of curiosity, with all these heads of state and vice presidents and delegations that will be coming in to commemorate with us, yesterday we hosted the presidential spokesman and press secretary, Yusuf Kokotoma Sandi, and we asked him a question about whether or not heads of political parties and Sierra Leone's have been invited to the commemoration ceremony. He emphatically said yes, they've extended invitation to all of the political leaders. But let's later, we saw a press statement from the former president saying it was only verbally invited later in the day, no time for him to prepare to make it. What does this speak of?
Okay, so let me put it in context. This is a national celebration. Some historical peppering over it might be helpful. In 1961, on the eve of independence, history has it that the APC wanted to foment trouble. Key leaders were arrested and detained, including the then leader of the APC, Dr. Shaka Stevens. Even in his detention at Pademba Road, he was sent a card and a bottle of whiskey so that he could also enjoy his own Independence Day celebrations wherever he was. This is the spirit of inclusivity that we are known for. So again, for this year's landmark Diamond Jubilee commemorations, we reach out to former President Nkrumah in recognition of the fact that he is a statesperson. He has led this country in time. He has made his own contribution. Courtesy demands that he's accorded that privilege. He was accordingly reached out to, and I'm told a copy of of his invite dropped at his residence in Freetown. What does that tell us? It tells us we set out to be inclusive, because this is Sierra Leone's Diamond Jubilee. He is meant to be there as somebody who is former leader, probably the only surviving head of state, right, living today. So having said that, you also have the situation wherein we sent invites to foreign dignitaries, including foreign heads of state, in the last 48 hours, right? They have made it. They are coming. Some of them have the advanced parties in country right now. Some of them are jetting in this morning, right? So the former president lives here in McKinney. It's 2 or 3 hours drive. He has been notified for more than 24 hours. If he wanted to come, he could come. But that's a private decision. I would have been the first to raise a red flag if the courtesy was not extended to him. But President Bill always insists this is the country's 60th independence anniversary, and anybody who is somebody who has played a part in this country deserves a place at the high table. So we did that. It's a purely private decision if he chooses not to come. But again, last night at the reception for the 2 presidents who had already landed here, you had heads of political parties in parliament attending. Conspicuously present were the leader of the APC, Honorable Cherno Majuba, Honorable Cherikoko, Honorable Lamina, and others were all in attendance. So this is a truly inclusive national celebrations.
Let's talk about these heads of state that are coming in. We're meant to understand that they will be decorated. Why, and what would they be dressed with?
So if you ask me, I honestly think this is coming too late in the day. It ought to have happened at some point in our history. You know, this country was literally on the brink, right? We have been to hell and back, particularly during the Civil War years. It was those countries, many of whom are in attendance or will be attending to this event, that supported us to retrieve us from the brink. They supported our war efforts. They supported the restoration of peace, and are still supporting the consolidation of our and deepening of our democracy. We believe they are worthy candidates for national decoration by His Excellency President Bill on this landmark occasion, right? We probably ought to have done this earlier.
Is that a way of cementing the relationship, of thanking them for their contributions to Sierra Leone, especially at a time when the country needed them most?
Well, they are not mutually exclusive. We will use this opportunity to strengthen the bilateral ties between our various countries, while at the same time using it to say an emphatic thank you for your support, thank you for your contribution in our darkest hour of need. We appreciate you. The people of Sierra Leone are grateful. You know, many of those countries send troops here. Yeah, their citizens perish here. They expended huge amounts of money here. They lost hardware here. They lost many things. So it's all about fitting that we rightly appreciate that at this moment.
Just quickly before letting you go, Professor Alpha Conde will be coming in as one of the heads of states, and we know recently the bilateral relations and the disputed Yenga saga and the closure of the border. What does this send in terms of the bilateral relations or ties between Sierra Leone and Guinea and Professor Alpha Conde coming in?
Well, you should tell me. We were in Guinea and the president was accorded full courtesies, full honors, including a private dinner with President Conde, and at very short notice again he has consented to come. He will be flying in this morning by helicopter, where he will inspect the 21-gun salute, following which he will fly into town and participate in the ceremony. This tells you, contrary to what the public think, we actually have a good relationship with Guinea and the Guinea president. Otherwise, he would not be coming to attend this occasion at very short notice, which is why many are asking if foreign leaders could afford to attend the 60th independence anniversary at short notice, why not Sierra Leonean invited guests? But again, that's for Sierra Leoneans to debate further.
Mr. Minister, you were part of the committee to assess worthy Sierra Leoneans for the presidential awards and honors, and we have about 81 people. How did you come about those 81 people, those some posthumously though?
So you have a committee put together by His Excellency. You have it was chaired by the Attorney General Minister of Justice. On that committee you have the Chief Justice, you have the Secretary to the President, you have the Foreign Minister, you have me, I think one other person. That's the committee for the review of worthy Sierra Leoneans for consideration for national awards. One thing you can be sure of, we were very dispassionate. We looked at people's individual contribution to national development, devoid of any other considerations. For us, this is a national honor, and you must have been deemed to have played a contribution to moving the country forward, right? And that is what we did. It is for the same reason that you do not have government ministers being awarded, right? You have people from the private sector, people from the media, you know, people from former politicians, diplomats, you know, across the aisle. But it's important to know that some people have even been recognized posthumously. That is after death, right? So this is a truly and honestly very inclusive national award. So I wish on behalf of the committee and indeed on behalf of government to congratulate all of them for being worthy recipients for this landmark anniversary achievement awards.
A day like this, we've seen a display of the green, white and blue, which should signify patriotism and nationalism. But what's government's commitment to ensuring that it goes beyond the display of green, white and blue when we talk about patriotism and nationalism? Because civic responsibility, one would want to argue, is missing in the mix.
Completely missing in action. I could not agree more. Government realized that it was for that reason that His Excellency set up by proclamation the National Council for Civic Education and Development. I went to a rural primary school in a small village. Back then we had civics as part of the school curriculum. We learned our rules, our rights and responsibilities as citizens. But today that is completely missing from the link. We all ask what government should do for us, but we don't ask what we should do as responsible citizens. So NACID, following nationwide consultations, workshops and engagements, has put together a national curriculum for the reintroduction of civics in schools as part of putting the building blocks in place to for a new civic culture, you know, awareness and consciousness among Sierra Leoneans. I really hope this new reawakening will stick, will stay, and once this works, it will go a long way to resolving many of our problems. Because if a youth man or somebody vandalizes government property, if that person is properly imbibed in civic culture, you will not be doing that. It's your responsibility to ensure the protection and preservation of all government edifices now and always, amongst other things. You throw debt all over the place willy-nilly. With a strong civic culture, we know we should not be littering all over the place. We have responsibilities before asking for rights.
Thank you very much, Minister.
God bless you. Thank you very much. Wishing all of you at AYV and the media generally a very happy Diamond Jubilee. Enjoy in peace, enjoy responsibly.
Right. Thank you very much. That the Minister of Information and Communications, Mohammed Rahman Soare, telling us how the commemoration is going to be like, giving us understanding of what the ceremony will look like. So we still continue to assess the streets of Freetown. My name is Samuel Wise Bangura. Back to you, Antonia Howard.
Thank you very much, Samuel, and happy Independence Day to you. We're continuing the conversation here in the studio with Haja Alima Abdullah and Dr. Julia Spencer. And now we've been joined by lawyer Francis Gabidon. We've said bye to Professor Alhaji Njai. Good morning to you. Mr. Gabidon.
Good morning. Good morning.
All right. We were talking about, what we're celebrating today, or what we're meant to be thinking about on today's 60th Independence Day celebration. And just to pick up where Haja Alima Abdullah left off, about the responsibility of leaders to be conscious and sensible to what the situation is, and try to connect with citizens and the people they govern. Just recently we saw an opera of the Okada riders, the commercial bike riders, who have been told not to run in the central business district. We also saw an opera of students who were meant to graduate, something about their names not being on the list, the unavailability of graduation gowns, and so many other things happening there. We also saw an incident in the hospitals with the doctors complaining, the Connaught Hospital, the doctors complaining about the sanitation and hygiene situation, the cleaners not being paid, and so many situations all across the country. But then you have the police who are, doing their duty to, ensure safety and security, but in a questionable manner. And this has been a situation that has continued, started years ago and has continued throughout the governance system in Sierra Leone. Now, in such situations like that, how do we address such problems? Yes, Haja Abdullah.
I think if every body takes his or her responsibilities seriously, and when you're carrying out your responsibilities, you do not have to show a show of force to say that I am in charge and whatever I say is what should go. But you have to do it professionally. That's why every profession has their own codes of ethics, how to behave and how not to behave. The police have the responsibility to behave in a way that shows their professionalism and everything. And in situations like this, you definitely have people who will go out of their way to do things that are very wrong. But that is why you are a professional. You should treat them professionally. The incident at IPAM was very, very unfortunate, especially when it had to do with a female student and the way they treated that girl. I mean, almost undressed her. That is very, very unprofessional, and that is not the way to go. The police, that's why I think it's good now that they have this disciplinary section of the police force, because they know that a lot of police go through the training, but then they too have their own excesses. So that's why we should have people who are there to contain the situation. And the one in the hospital is very, very, don't try to find the cause, don't try to do what is not right. Like The cleaners are there, not paid for almost a year. That is unacceptable. That is very unacceptable. And that's what brings out this violence, this animosity, and all of that. If everybody tries to do their duties right, be honest, be sincere in carrying out your duty, if you are not paid for a month or two, how do you survive? Much more to say you are not paid for a whole year. So these are things that those in those offices should be held responsible for that. There is no reason why you can contract somebody to do a service and you do not pay that person. If that person is not doing the service well, that is why there is always the clause in every agreement to terminate the contract. But you cannot keep them going and them not paying them. So these are all the issues that spark out these problems in society. And that makes us all very, very uneasy when we hear that there is a problem here, there is a problem there. The problems have been too many. You know, the Tombo case, so many. And we want to live in peace. If we say we are in peace, let us be in peace. It's not only that we say there is peace, but let us feel it. Let us sense it. And there is so much stress around when you hear of all this. So whenever you see a policeman with a gun, you're wondering what's happening. Why is he holding a gun and all of that? And it's not good for the citizens. It's not good even for government. It's not good. So let us try to take our responsibilities very, very seriously. And in every profession, let's have the human face. When you have the human face, you will be able to consider the person as a human being. What you do not want them to do to you, don't do to somebody else. So let's be very, very professional in carrying out our duties.
Right. Dr. Julia Spencer, now this situation with the police using excessive force to deal with, say, riots or protests, demonstrations, you name it, and the disciplinary actions not being taken against officers who use excessive force. How do we get the Sierra Leone police and, you know, its extension of, you know, security forces to be disciplined and for them to act independently and professionally?
What we are seeing, all of these things happening, are symptoms of a deeper malaise, some of which I've alluded to, some of which Dr. Njai mentioned. We need to have some real deep thinking about why we are facing the problems we are facing now. You take police. It did not start today. It did not start 10 years ago even. In the past, when I was a boy, policemen never carried guns. Even soldiers, you did not see them on the streets with guns. We had soldiers, but they were in the barracks. If they were going out if it was extremely rare to see a soldier on the street in uniform with a weapon. Now, policemen are around with guns all the time. Something has gone wrong. Historically, when there was a coup attempt against Shaka Stevens in, I think it was 1971, the John Bangura coup, he ran away to Guinea. Guinea sent troops to Sierra Leone to support him. It was after that the ISU, they were called then, was created. Went to Cuba for training as a paramilitary force. The military, as far as Stevens was concerned, was put on was sidelined. They were not even provided proper weaponry, and all those kind of things happened. So progressively, we have come to where we are. People in political power see these state institutions there as they should serve them, not the state. And it has been happening for a while. And so it has now become the norm. I have made the point to some people in power a number of times. When I was minister, I could call a policeman and say, go and arrest Haja. They will arrest her. They will not even ask me why. They will arrest her, lock her up, and maybe after 2 days they'll come to me and say, please sir, what should we do with her? But I said, if I perpetuate that system, when I leave power, somebody else will be able to call maybe even that same policeman to arrest Julius Spencer. And that same policeman will come and arrest me. And we have seen it happen. We have seen people who had power, who were giving orders to police, who were sending them to arrest other people. When they lost power, same policemen went after them. So if we do not sort out the fundamental problems, this thing is only going to get worse. I mentioned cliques. People don't seem to understand why young people will get involved in that. Go to all these attire bases. What is happening there? Young men sit down there all day. They have nothing better to do, most of them. Some of them do. And they talk what they believe is going on, what they should do, what government is not doing, etc., etc. They are venting their frustrations. When there's any problem, those who go and burn government property, people's houses, cars, check. Not a single one of them own any property. Not a single one of them. So they don't know the value of the things they are destroying. So there is a fundamental problem, and Dr. Njai spoke about transformational thinking. But from my experience being in government, it is generally not present within government circles. Government on its own does not have the capacity to do that kind of thinking and examine the issues, which is why some of us now are speaking up. We need to have that kind of engagement and that kind of analysis. Some of it is deep intellectual thinking, historical understanding of why we are where we are. Then we can chart a course. What we've been doing for a long time is dealing with the symptoms, doing cosmetic changes, trying to address, working on things piecemeal. We do not have what you would call a national vision for where we want this country to go and the steps that we need to take to get there in a holistic manner. I say again, our political system is one of the major causes of our problem. Dr. Njai spoke about education. Haja also has spoken about education. I went to school in this country. I did not know about Sengbe Pierre until I was doing research for my PhD. Baibure, the image I had of Baibure was a song we used to sing. Baibure was a warrior. I'm sure kids still sing it today. He fought against the British made him surrender. Basically denigrating a man who we should have lifted as a real hero. In terms of nationalism, people talk, oh, people are not nationalistic, they are not patriotic. It does not happen in a vacuum. It does not, people just wake up one morning and be nationalistic or patriotic. It has to be cultivated. And people are nationalistic and patriotic when they believe that they are getting something out of that country for which they are being nationalistic or patriotic. We need to be able to coalesce around symbols. I do this experiment. I ask Sierra Leoneans, if we're in a room, and we're all of different ethnic groups, I ask them, what is it that makes you and I Sierra Leoneans? What is it that makes all of us Sierra Leoneans? They cannot point, nobody can point to anything other than the fact that we were born in this landmass called Sierra Leone, which some white men sat somewhere and drew lines on a map and said, this is Sierra Leone. That is the only thing we can point to. Mende is a nation. Timni is a nation. I'm not sure about Creole. Fula is a nation, etc., etc. Why? Because they share many things in common. Language, traditions, customs, etc., etc. It is like families. If there is danger and you have kids and your neighbor's kids are also around, who will you try to save first? Your own children. And if the children sense danger, who will they run to first? Their family members, people they know. So instinctively, the human being coalesces around people that they share some common heritage with, which is why we don't have ethnic problems in this country, except when politics gets involved. Without politics, Sierra Leoneans have no problem as far as ethnicity is concerned. I have worked and lived in many parts of Sierra Leone. I have traveled, I've been to every large town in this country, from north to south, east to west. I have never experienced any discrimination. I'm a Creole. I come from Freetown. But I can go to a village in the south or the east or the north. I don't know anybody. I need some help. They'll give me help. I've been traveling to Liberia years ago. I got to the border and it was late. I could not cross. I just went to a house in the village there. I explained to them my circumstances. They gave me a place to sleep. They gave me hot water to take a bath. They gave me food. They didn't know me. I couldn't speak their language. So it is only when politics gets involved, politicians have realized that it is in their interest to get people to think ethnicity, and it is getting worse. The political parties we have today were not formed by single ethnic groups, nor even by a group of ethnic groups. They were national in their character. SLPP, for example, was formed in the north, in Cambia. Northerners were at the helm of SLPP. APC was not formed in the north. Shaka Stevens was born in Moyamba. Shaka Stevens really is a Mende man. His father was Limba, but settled in the north. But over time, because of the way certain people behave, we've had these two parties coalescing around certain regions and certain ethnic groups, and it is getting worse. We need to break the cycle. We need to break the cycle. And I say again, we need to have some real deep conversation about what has gone wrong and what we need to do. There are many things we need to do.
This is the problem now. If you say politicians have realized that, you know, getting Sierra Leoneans to think along tribal lines is to their benefit, then how do they develop the will to change that? Doesn't that responsibility fall back on ordinary Sierra Leoneans? How do we beat this problem if people who come up with the policies and the programs that should change this ideology would not sit alone and develop the will to do so, because getting the division is at their advantage?
Campaign for Good Governance, one of the most prominent civil society organizations. I was one of 3 people who established it. Reason being, I firmly believe in the power of civil society for citizens to stand up and get involved in what needs to be done for them. I know for a fact that governments, not just in Sierra Leone, across the world, no government always does what is best for its people. The people have to be able to push the government to do what is in their interest, because naturally the human being is selfish. The them and us syndrome, I have witnessed it. I've been in government. I've sat in cabinet and an issue was being discussed a number of times. And some people will say, oh, they'll use it against us. Who are they? Ordinary people, the citizens. It's like when you're in government, you all seem to see yourselves as a certain category of citizens, and the rest of society is a different category of citizens. It has nothing to do with party. It is the very nature of government and the power that you get when you are there. I have been a cabinet minister. I've traveled on private jets with the president. landed in airports and received this fanfare. I have traveled to the UK as a minister. I would be received on board the plane, taken down the stairs, first into a waiting car, driven to the VIP lounge, served tea and biscuits and whatever, and after a while, you come, please sir, your luggage is ready, the car is ready. I go to a hotel. I left government. I went to the same UK. Nobody went there to receive me. I had to stand in line. So I know what it means to be in government and how that can change people's perception. Our problem in Sierra Leone, I say again, is the system that we are operating is one of the major problems. And Dr. Njai seemed to agree with me. At independence, those who took over simply replaced the white man. And we were still subject. We are still subject today to those who hold political power. Because of the system, the winner-take-all system that we are practicing, it perpetrates that. It does not make for unity. It makes for divisiveness. So we need to be honest and look at all of this. Let us stop blaming people. Let's stop blaming SLPP or APC or this or that. It is not an individual thing. It is not the fault of the individual parties. The system makes it possible. You take people from Sierra Leone, Sierra Leoneans, judges, policemen, and put them in a situation where the system works, they do well. Our policemen have gone to peacekeeping operations. Yeah. They excel. Our judges who would give ridiculous judgments here, some of them go serve in other countries, and they are working perfectly. The average Sierra Leonean who will throw refuse on the streets here, go to London. They do not do that because there are waste bins where you should throw the refuse. So the system has to be working. I tell you about Namibia. I use that as an example these days. In Namibia, you don't see refuse on the streets. It is the second cleanest city in the world, not just in the world, next to Rwanda. You don't see refuse on the streets. Why? They have a system of clearing the refuse every night. You pay something small for that. They have had drought for a long time, but their water pipes don't run dry. Why? Because they have a system that works. One day we were going out, my friend and I, and we passed one area and somebody was putting up some kind of makeshift garage. And I said, hey, you have these things here as well? He said, wait, we'll pass there a few days from now and you'll see if it will be there. And true to form, 2 days later I passed there, it was not there. It had been removed. They have an area they want to develop. People don't just go and build houses as they like. They plan the settlement. They do the roads, they lay water pipes, lay electricity, and sell the plots. You go and you build your house on a plot that has been planned. It's not working here. Why? The system is not working. The system is the problem. If we do not change the system, and unfortunately, I tell people, more than 90% of Sierra Leoneans don't want a change in the system. They only want a change in their circumstances. Because they will complain, they'll criticize, put them there where they have the power. The same things they were criticizing, they will be the same things they will do, if not worse. So we have to deal with the system, educational system, political system, economic system. It was not meant to serve us. It was meant to serve our colonial masters. Now it is serving our current masters. We need to change the narrative. And it cannot be done without some real, deep intellectual thinking. Us as citizens need to engage. We need to get government to engage. And I think fortunately for us this time, we have a president and a vice president that seem to believe in the proportional representation system. What we need to do now is to have that conversation and identify which kind of system are we going to use that will get rid of all this animosity and this conflict and make us able to focus on development issues?
All right. Just to bring, let's bring Francis Gabidon into the conversation. Now, we've heard, you know, Dr. Spencer on how we can move forward and how we need to address the challenges within the system. Just taking it back to after the war, where we had the Truth and Reconciliation Commission put together this report and, you know, recommendations and on how we can build a better nation, talking about reviewing some of the laws, starting from the Constitution, you know, addressing issues within the justice system, you know, the police and other institutions which are meant to function independently. Where are we now in terms of, you know, those recommendations, and what can we do to make this system work?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. The problem with Sierra Leone is that I think we take things naively or take things for granted. Until we have a problem, then we start to look for solutions. To me, after the death of Sir Milton Magai, I think we started to have problems in this country. There's been a general failure of leadership and management. It's a pity we don't know how long he would have ruled this country. But let's take the TRC, because I was involved in the TRC. I actually testified. We have not complied with most of the TRC recommendations. Going back to Dr. Spencer, one of the recommendations of the TRC was that the OSD should be disbanded. I want you to listen particularly. To be disbanded. It's a paramilitary organization which was formed by the late Sheikh Hassim for a specific purpose. It was formed to thwart the soldiers in case they tried to make a coup. That was what it was formed for. They sent them to Cuba. My friend Dumbuya, who led the group, is dead today. And all successive governments have continued with the OSD. Sierra Leone does not need a paramilitary organization. They have created problems. I said so in the TRC. In fact, there was a point when they virtually were doing everything with impunity. To a great extent, they still do things with impunity. When have you ever heard of an OSD being prosecuted and convicted? When? Have you ever heard of an OSD officer who shot somebody or killed them? Not in Sierra Leone. What happens is there'll be a press conference, they'll tell you they're investigating, nothing comes out of it. That is Sierra Leone. When George Floyd, one black man was shot, we know they have problems in the United States of America. But you see when Biden came and others, and before that they said, enough is enough. We're tired of people shooting black people. Something is being done, and you can see that continuation. We gave a list of all what the OSDs have done in this country for years. Not just at IPAM, at Bumbuna. They kill people at Bumbuna, they kill people up at Koinadugu. Nothing happened, nobody prosecutes them. No SF, no DPP, no Solicitor General takes them to court. If you don't prosecute them and convict them, and people don't see that these are people who can fall foul of the law, nobody will take us, they won't even take us seriously. I go to court at times, and OSD with gun would ask me, where are you going? I've been going to this court for over 40 years. An illiterate man from somewhere asking me where I'm going to. You know, it hurts. I'm sorry to say an illiterate, because he was an illiterate. The question is also the caliber of people we're talking about. We're talking about failures of the system. What about the appointments of these people? Under the former regimes, people were appointed on merit. They used to have, for example, a commission that used to, you have to apply, for example, you want to be a civil servant, you send all your papers, they look at it, they vet, before they give you a job. Nowadays, you can stay in Timbuktu and they say, come home, be XYZ. You think this is a serious country? In countries like Ghana and Nigeria, where there is competition for jobs, it doesn't work that way. There is no competition in Sierra Leone. It is job for the boys. That's another problem. And when you have jobs for the boys, what do you expect them to perform? No. The other culture of impunity. People do things with impunity in Sierra Leone. They don't want to know what will be the consequences because they think they'll get away with it. We have fundamental problems in this country. I agree with Dr. Spencer. We should start to think of the proportional representation system. When it was adhered to for some time, it worked. This winner takes all does not work. It has not worked even in the Caribbean, where they don't have tribalism, much more in a country where you have tribalism like that. Sierra Leone is totally divided, totally tribalized. Everything is politics. Everything is tribal. People you went to school with nowadays they have become different people just because they think you're not with them. We cannot go on like this. At times I feel like going back away. People say, why do you say that? I said, because I don't believe this is the country I grew up. Sierra Leone to me when I came back home in '72. I studied in England. I was rushing to come back to this wonderful country. For some time, up to the OU, you could not have had a better place. Then things started to go wrong. Now what happens? The people who should go into politics don't go into politics. I said that to the TRC. I'm afraid, as like Stevie said, well, he said so. He said, if you're not sitting on a host, you don't want to get involved in politics, he said, na fishu mango now. We have that problem. Go and look at the parliament we have. Look at the caliber of their debates. Look at the caliber of some of the representatives we have. Are these really some of these people to run this country? A country that has had education for over nearly 200 years? The other day in Cape Town in South Africa, they were celebrating 200 years. They mentioned Sierra Leone. You won't believe it. They said not just University of Cape Town, but Fabe College. I see the president the other day went to Fabe College, the old one at Kleintown, and went to the railway one. Fine. The problem is, go to Fabe College today. I lecture there. These students don't want to read. They don't want to know. They all depend on the internet. You ask a simple question, some of them cannot answer. I said to them, you want to be a lawyer? And you have about 360 of them up there at final year. We have a big problem. People don't want to be veterinary surgeons. People don't want to be accountants. They all want to be lawyers. People don't want to do other things in Sierra Leone. They're only looking for the areas where quick money. We don't have people who can't sell young people at colleges or university. This one-way street, everybody follow this place. I go ride Lexus. We have a deep-seated problem. We have such problems, Dr. Spencer said. It's going to take years. The other day I was reading the papers, and the man wrote and said that the first female mayor in this country was Dr. June Rones. And editor does not even know about Constance Cummins Jones. What are you reading in his paper? Then he says that Dr. June Rones was a chartered accountant. That woman was a doctor. And how can a paper like this be published in this country? An editor of a newspaper. If you don't know the history of Sierra Leone, leave these papers, go there. These papers go out of the country. People ring me and say, look, what is going on in this country? If you cannot be, if you're not educated, you are not informed, why are you writing papers to mislead other people? How can June Rones, of all people, be a chartered accountant? How can Mrs. Constance Cummins Jones, the first mayor, female mayor, not just in Sierra Leone, in the whole of West Africa, if not in Africa, not being mentioned? We have problems, I'm telling you. And some of these young people don't even want to learn. They don't want, there's no second opinion inside it. Probably if I have a problem, I'll call Dr. Spencer. I call him on a few cases, Doc XYZ. Not this young, they will not call you. They don't want to know. The only thing he wants to know, he wants to ride the biggest car. He wants to, we have basic problems. To me, politics has ruined our country. I'm sorry to say so. I say so. Probably we're all partly guilty of it. I'm not going to excuse myself. But it has ruined this country. Tribalism has ruined this country. Sierra Leoneans generally are not tribalistic. If you take one local mainly Kruma and put them there in a small house, they're not going to be a problem. You put the educated ones, you have problem. Now we see people come from all over the world. You don't know them, you don't know the... I told the Deputy Minister of Information, I said, why don't you publish a list of our ambassadors and high commissioners abroad? He said, Mr. Gabriel, that's Twitter. I said, let's know who are these people. We don't know some of these people. We don't know their track record. We don't know about them. Mr. X has been sent to Morocco. I asked somebody, I said, you know, it's yes, I'm your uncle, don't they London almost here. Before you have a CV of this person, you know who he is. You cannot run the country like this. I'm sorry, this is not a place for friends and followers or relatives. This is a country where you have good people, educated people. We are respected all over the world. I went to Nigeria once, and they said to me, why do you send this type of people as high commissioners here? That's what the man said to me. He said, we take you people so serious. He said, I went to university in College. He said, why are you sending this caliber of people there as high commissioner? I won't call the man's name. He said, Francis, I went to that university. We have problems. Unless we take away this politics, I'm going to say, we take away tribal, it's going to take a long time. Proportional representation might be part of the answer. When you have that list, and people, you talk about failure of institutions, look at the heads of some of the MDAs. Have you spoken to them? Look at, if you see a cabinet paper, look, if we only see the top, you haven't seen the bottom. Some people write a letter asking for employment in something. It's unbelievable that person has a degree. This country, where people used to come for education, this topic is just, it's a whole gamut. And the other problem, we don't speak the truth. As Dr. Spencer said, Sierra like to sweep things under the carpet. I went to Rokel Bank the other day. One woman said to Mr. Gabriel, I don't see you on television anymore. I said, well, they don't call me. She said, I must say to some extent, I might not agree with what you say. Well, one thing I like is that I tell people to. I said, but that's our problem. Sardinians are scared. Nobody's going to kill you for speaking the truth. Nobody's going to shoot you for speaking the truth. We sweep things under the carpet. We mislead our bosses.
At the pace
we don't tell
we're
them the
going,
truth.
you know, with, you know, students being attacked for protesting for something which is rightfully theirs, you know, accessing graduation gowns, which they've paid for, you know, their names not being published on the graduation list. Some people were meant to be there, others were not meant to be there, you know, and you have doctors complaining about sanitation and hygiene in hospitals, yet they're being attacked. Then you might want to question whether someone would not be gunned down for speaking the truth.
IFAM, that's a failure of the leadership at IFAM. How can you publish a list of a few number of people and then that's a complete failure? What did they do? They had a press conference the other day. I just didn't listen to it. A problem like that, head should have been rolled. Something should have been done. What happens? They paper it. What they had was a press conference. After such an incident, the police, you send a few OSD there. No, take a senior person to go there with them. And they start to beat, kick. What do you expect? We don't take things seriously. In some universities, they would have taken them to court. Ghana, Nigeria, you publish that list. There's no way what happens. This is the end of it. We read it in the papers. People forget by next week. There is so much impunity inside them. There is no accountability inside them. There is no accountability. People are not punished when they do the wrong things. They have places they're going to run to, or they're going to pay a newspaper to write something nice about them. In fact, I'm starting to stop reading our papers. I only read them because let me know what's happening. They've been shot. They're so politicized. They are so politicized.
Let's try to, you know, round up the conversation now on how we can move forward. Starting with you, what kind of Sierra Leone would you like to see? We're marking 60th independence, our 60th Independence Day today. Moving forward.
In my own humble way, I've given so much to this country. I've lectured without taking salaries for years at Fabi College. It's on the record. I served as ombudsman for years in this country. I still lecture at Fabi College without being paid for months now. I have done my own bits. I have helped people in many ways. I've spoken out on many issues in which people don't want to talk about. I have tried to advise people in government, give them my own views. They don't, for example, Yenga. I remember I was very close to President Kaba. I told him that we should take Guinea to the International Court of Justice at The Hague, because that is what you should do when somebody is in court. He said, Gabez, then I'll fumble them. What you call them, Soso and Madingo. That's another question of fumble. Cameroon and Nigeria, take them to the International Court of Justice. Who would have got Yenga back? We have funny solutions to problems. He was a very good friend of mine. I love that man so much. Well, I told him that. Professor Kaikai said to him, oh, Mr. Gabriel, that's premature. Premature? We still have Yenga. If we had gone to the International Court of Justice at The Hague, Yenga would have been finished. We do not give good advice. We do not give good advice. Now they form a committee to, all that is a waste of time. Take Guinea, whether they are so Madingo is irrelevant. If they've taken part of our territory, we want it back. The only way you get it back, short of all, is to go to the ICJ. That is what other countries do. We have problems, you know. I'm sorry, you're not going to have probably the way you want me to answer this, because we see some of these problems. We have been involved in some of them. Right. Nobody listens to you. When the question of, when the question of the so-called Tusim came, which I probably started in this country, for months, I don't know whether you were in that program, I wrote an article in the papers. It was an article I wrote to say there is a provision in our constitution that says XYZ, 4 or 5 to 6 months before the election. They did not take it seriously. I had a lot of abuse from America. My daughter was threatened in the United States. I just laughed. We still have problems. People meet me, how do we get to vote? I said, don't ask me. A matter that you could easily, with a simple majority in parliament, go and ask your lawyers. We have so many simple problems. And until we have the guts to speak out, I know some people are scared. Oh, Mr. Gabriel, you better, nobody will pay you salary like government. They're not going to sack you because you speak the truth. They're not going to sack you. How many Salonians have been sacked? How many people have been killed because they spoke the truth? Ghana, Nigeria, Gambia, like they speak the truth. We sweep things under the carpet, madam. I'm sorry you were here. You interviewed me on a particular program, which we did. I said that if I was in that person's position, I would have resigned. And that person, I think, did not want to resign. The person was sacked. I'm not going to call him. You know the program I'm talking about.
Right.
Well, the point is, if we do not have, just a minute, if we do not have this ability, why do we come to these places if it's just to paper over there? As I said to people, don't call me to your studio if you want me to come and tell lies or to please you. At my age, a matter of years more, probably I'm gone, with all what I think I'm doing, I'm not here to pamper anything. We do not want to face the reality of this position. That's what I have to say. All I can think, let's start with the PR, our proportional representation. Probably that could help. 2, our newspapers, I was so glad when they repealed the libel laws. But what has happened? It's all politics. You cannot open a paper that you can read an objective and a balanced article. Probably except Awoko, but they don't even have editorials. As I said to my friend, I said, can you have a good paper like you don't even write editorials? But we have problems. You take the other 2 papers which have come, it's all politics. One is so pro-APC, the other one is so pro-SAV. That's not why I buy this paper. If I buy the Times of London or I buy the Daily Graphic from Ghana, I want to read a good article. All right. It's all politics. Well, even our journalists have become politicized. You know, the problem is, I wouldn't say insurmountable. We'll have a long way to go. That's all I can say. I wish our country, well, it's the best country in the world. I've traveled a lot, like Dr. Spencer. I've been to many countries. I've been to Salone. Is beautiful. We have the nicest people you can imagine, but there are fundamental problems here, which I don't know whether I can.
Thank you very much, Francis Gavidan. Haja Alima Abdullah, what kind of Sierra Leone would you like to see?
I really pray every day for Sierra Leone, because I think we are, like Mr. Gavidan said, we have a beautiful country, and we feel more at home when we are in Sierra Leone. And we want to feel secured, we want to feel safe, we want to feel at peace, we want to be able to express ourselves, not to go and libel wherever we are. And this is something that is really eating the fabric of society, this liberalism. And people, our leaders, those who have the opportunity, those who are in positions of responsibility, think that they are there as of right, and therefore they have no limitations. They don't think that they are accountable. Accountability, you should be self-searching. If our leaders go home and think every day, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? And try to correct themselves. And let's stop this pointing of fingers, because we are always pointing the finger at the other purposing, not taking stock of what we are doing, how wrong we are, and how we can correct ourselves. That is what is basically wrong. And I'm really happy that Dr. Spencer is talking about this proportional representative. I'm with you with that, because the proportional, this by-elections every now and again causes a lot of problem, causes a lot of tension in Sierra Leone. So we should look at our electoral process. And I am told that there's going to be a conference in June that is coming to speak about the legal framework of our electoral process. I hope a lot of people will be there to talk about this proportional representation. It is not good that the winner takes all. We are a country, and let us look at ourselves as Sierra Leoneans. I really pity that Dr. Bell, so many years ago, came with this campaign, Sierra Leoneans love one another. I don't know how successful that has been, because when it comes to politics, we try to tear ourselves apart, and that is not good enough. We need a country that we can do politics, and then we all sit together. When this party is going wrong, we correct them. When this person is going wrong, we correct them. Free speech, free interaction, that is what I am looking for. And we need to have a secured environment for our children, because otherwise they too will just grow up with that mentality, and then when we are past, we don't know what is going to happen to Sierra Leone. May God help Sierra Leone, and may we take this time to reflect. And our the money that was spent on the constitutional review has not yielded any fruits. There is so much in that revised constitution, but still we are dragging our feet so many years now, and that has not come to fruition. I hope and pray that this government will take that very seriously, because there is a lot in it that we need to bring on board and make Sierra Leone a better country.
All right, and Dr. Spencer, your parting shot, what kind of Sierra Leone would you like to see?
I'll describe my vision of the Sierra Leone that I would like to see. I would like to see a Sierra Leone which is like Dubai, structurally. We have the resources, we have the intellectual capacity, not necessarily all in Sierra Leone, but even Sierra Leoneans in the diaspora. We have the capacity to transform this country to a country like Dubai, infrastructurally. I also want to see a country where the rule of law takes primacy, where the rule of law is the ass that it is supposed to be, does not know anybody, whether you are rich or poor, you are whatever. The law is the law, and it is applied across the board. I would like to see a country where security forces are serving the interests of the people of the country. Our national structures and institutions are serving the people and not those in political power. I'd like to see a country where the average Sierra Leonean is happy, can fend for himself or herself, can have at least 2 meals a day, has a place to lay his head or her head, their children can be educated. I would like to see a Sierra Leone where the educational system is such that it makes provision for all categories of people. Those who have talents in the arts can get education. Those who have talents in the science and technology, etc., because we need to be able to produce people from across the spectrum, the intellectual spectrum. I would like to see a Sierra Leone where we can have reasoned discussion and debates on national issues, where people do not think that you are their enemy because you disagree with them. I would like to see a Sierra Leone where we can all identify those things that make us Sierra Leoneans. A Sierra Leone where we can be patriotic because we are getting something back from the country. Therefore, we feel that we have to give back. I would like to see a Sierra Leone where our government is representative, The people have a say in what the government is doing, and the government is responsive directly to the needs of the people. I would like to see a country that is peaceful, where people can go to bed at night and have a sound sleep and believe that they are protected, that they are not going to go out on the streets and somebody will attack them for no just cause. I would like to say Sierra Leone, where young people have hope for the future, where they believe that they have a stake in this country and that they can aspire to be the best that they can be. That is the Sierra Leone I would like to see.
Right. Thank you very much for coming this morning, and a happy Independence Day to you both. And Francis Gabidon, he's left us